Professor Njuguna has exited the Ministry of Treasury and National Planning after lifting the lid on what he believes ails the critical docket. Ndung'u admitted to there being external pressure on the taxes imposed on Kenyans. Appearing to take a different stance from his former boss, President William Ruto, Ndung'u says imposing high taxes is not the way to achieve revenue growth. Our reporter Melita Oletenges reports.
From this notion that high tax rates will raise high tax revenue. The reality is the opposite. I don't want to mention who drives us there, but there are so many colleagues here to tell you exactly what we need to do. So because high taxes cannot bring you high tax revenue, what do we need to do? We need to study how we can optimize each tax instrument.
Professor Njuguna may have not mentioned the forces behind high taxation in the country, but indeed confirms they exist. His parting shot in the Ministry of Treasury in a 19-minute speech was loaded with soft but punchy undertones of what was rocking his docket. Njuguna, taking a different stance from his former boss, President William Ruto, who has been advocating that Kenyans should hand over more of their hard-earned cash. The president has in the past said the overall tax burden is lower compared to other countries in Africa and beyond. Professor Njuguna also revealed that the National Treasury suffered inconsistencies in internal policies, posing a setback to strides achieved in reducing poverty and inequality in the country.
It refers to poverty reduction efforts by 20 years. It also reversed efforts of fighting inequality by over 20 years. For example, the drought itself had more devastating consequences in terms of inequality. And because of that, government became the main driver of the economy. You remember there were times during the global financial crisis, we actually argued that if you want to be the only game in town, you'll be the only game in town, but it will not last long.
However, Njuguna says the country is between a rock and a hard place, with a monster over debt and with little revenue.
Let me give you examples. Total revenues stand at about 16.5% of GDP. And the target for this 2024 was actually 18.6%, with a finance bill that is not there. So it means that those revenues may not be realized.
Addressing the high cost of living and taxation, Professor Ndung'u argued that these are symptoms of deeper issues: entrenched poverty and rising unemployment, particularly among the youth.
I'm familiar with this because I found Kenya in 2009 was going into dark grey list. It was going to the black list until we salvaged the situation by 2014. But we had to work very hard from the central bank point of view. Right now, the Treasury was supposed to provide the leadership, but the central bank then provided the leadership. Right now, the Treasury must provide the leadership.
He stressed the need for a comprehensive tax policy reform, a 3-year study aiming to boost the country's GDP.
We want to come up with a tax policy that is predictable in terms of revenue, that is predictable in terms of the manufacturing sector and the production sector. That is, they know that taxes will not continue to change periodically. But it also does not distort the market.
Professor Njuguna exit underscores the critical need for reforms in the National Treasury as Kenya navigates its economic challenges and prepares for a more stable financial future. Melita Oletenges, Citizen TV, Nairobi.